This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. You usually don't put adverse, hostile witnesses in your case in chief. You start with the friendlies. But if you're Letitia James and you're doing the fraud case of the century against Donald Trump, you swing for the fences and you try to hit a grand slam home run. And as part of the narrative, the momentum of your case, you take risks because your case is so strong. Like you pull from the other side the defendants, including Alan Weisselberg, disgraced felon, chief financial officer of the Trump organization. You put him on the stand in your case in chief, rather than waiting for him to come up on the defendant's side and cross-examine him. You call up Jeff McConney, the controller, the person responsible for financial controls within the company, who's been there for 40 years, who reports to Alan Weisselberg, who got an immunity deal to testify against the Trump organization in the summer last year's tax evasion successful prosecution of the Trump organization. You swing for the fences. Now, I'm not saying that Weisselberg hasn't been a success or a successful gambit by Letitia James, but it's not going exactly the way she wanted it. His testimony is much more muted, much more subdued, less interested in going out on a limb to dump on Donald Trump. He's hewing closely to things that he said when he was a person looking at a 5.5-month sentence at Rikers Island in the tax evasion case, but no more. And he's finding ways to deviate from his testimony, requiring the Office of Attorney General to nail him where they can in cross-examination with efforts to impeach him. One in particular is this constant refrain that Donald Trump's penthouse, which forms a big portion of his net worth, is 1/3 the size that he argued. And it matters not just because he got loans arguing that his house was 3 times larger than it was on a prime plot on Fifth Avenue in New York, but then also got it insured for that amount. That's insurance fraud. The first one is mortgage and bank fraud. And then he used it to try to pump up his ranking on the Forbes 400 list of wealthiest people in the world. In fact, Forbes reports today that Alan Weisselberg lied when he was on the stand about his interactions with the Forbes magazine in the 2000s, 2010s, 2015s, and that time period, where he argued constantly, Alan Weisselberg, that the size of the penthouse was 30,000 square feet and should be valued at anywhere between $90 and $200 million on the personal financial statement for Donald Trump to bump him up in the rankings. He even hosted Forbes magazine reporters in Trump Tower penthouse, didn't give them a complete tour, but kept telling them, we own 3 floors. It's 10,000 square feet a floor, and we got the penthouse. It's 30,000 square feet, $200 million. Put that on your Forbes list. Bump my guy up. But on the stand during testimony, he said, well, it was a minimal mistake between what it really was, 10,000 and 30,000. And given my boss's overall net worth in the $5 or $6 billion range, I didn't really see it as that important. It was so important, Alan Weisselberg, 5-6 years ago, he was hosting Forbes magazine reporters and emailing them to try to pump up the value of that unit to $200 million. Now, why is he subdued? And you can tell that he's pissing off the Office of Attorney General. And they're not. He's not following the narrative, right? They're throwing him softballs and they're banging off his head, and he's not taking it. And he's not letting them make out the narrative that they wanted. In fact, they're getting frustrated. And how do I know that they're getting frustrated? Because the lawyer that's handling the examination, Louis Solomon for the Office of Attorney General, finally, to try to discipline Weisselberg, get him back on track, pulled out his severance agreement today. This was the bombshell that ended the day of testimony for one Alan Weisselberg, and said, aren't you being paid up to $2 million at a severance payment if you cooperate with the Trump organization? Don't disparage them and don't voluntarily cooperate and give any testimony or support to any lawsuit against them. Isn't that right, sir? And he had to say, I'm getting a severance payment of up to $2 million. And isn't it true, I'm giving you the cross-examination, that you've already been paid on a monthly or quarterly basis a certain percentage of that? And he had to say, yes. And isn't it true, sir, that you, having already received about $750,000, you are set to receive another $1.25 million if you play ball and you comply with your obligations under this agreement, right, sir? Yes. And one of the obligations under your agreement is that you won't voluntarily cooperate with the New York Attorney General or anybody bringing a lawsuit against your former employer. Isn't that right, sir? Yes. And the only way that you'll agree or be able to collect on the rest of the money that's owed you, that won't be paid to you until December of next year, is if you are compelled to testify by way of a court order or subpoena. Isn't that right, sir? Yes, it is. And you haven't received all your money yet, have you? No. And you're worried about the chance that you may lose the $2 million, aren't you? And then, of course, and here is the final blow. And, sir, in addition to that, and knowing that you could lose the $2 million, you also believe it's not just a coincidence, is it, that the $2 million figure equals the exact amount of fine for $2 million that you paid because of your tax evasion conviction last year with the Manhattan DA? It's just a coincidence, sir? And he mumbled, it's just a coincidence. Now, the reason, I'll tell you from a trial lawyer, 32 years in courtrooms just like this one, including this courtroom that I'm talking about, the reason that Mr. Solomon, for the Office of Attorney General, in a frustrated display, had to pull out that agreement is he wasn't getting what he needed out of this witness at the rate that he wanted it. It was like pulling teeth. And the reason it was a more muted set of testimony is obvious, because the old guy, the old man, is worried about not getting the remainder of his $1.25 million. That's a giant carrot that's out there for him, giant brass ring, and he's trying not to blow it. So he's trying to testify truthfully. But, he spent 2 days with a lot of I don't remember, I don't recall on key issues. Donald Trump's involvement in certain things, don't remember. Eric Trump's involvement in certain things, don't remember. Don Jr.'s involvement in certain things, don't remember. A lot of don't remembers. Now, you had to admit that Donald Trump was involved, at least on a number of documents where he signed his own name on statements of financial condition used to get bank loans, commit insurance fraud, pump up his ranking on the Forbes list. So when confronted with those documents, he had I see that signature, like that, but not joyously, not happily. Again, like root canal, like we're watching root canal. Now, the good part about all this is, or the saving grace, is that this is not being done in front of a jury. A jury could come away with sort of mixed feelings about such testimony. But a Judge Engoron, because this is a bench trial, he is giving he's already giving a discount, a truth discount to Alan Weisselberg and a credibility discount. And judges often comment about credibility of witnesses that they observe. And you can tell he's already given him not a pass, but a discount, like a 50% off for whatever this guy's going to say. It's not the key to the Office of Attorney General's case. We're only in week 2 of a case that's going to be 100+ trial days. But I give her credit, and I've done it before myself. She swung for the fences, to use a baseball term, went for a grand slam home run. She had good testimony from Jeff McConney, the controller who reported to Alan Weisselberg, because, he was a little more honest and transparent. He's waiting on a $500,000 severance check. And he admitted that he was scared that he was going to lose it. He admitted at one point in his testimony that if he didn't doctor the books and didn't make the changes and cook the books around the numbers of Donald Trump's net worth, that he would have been fired by Donald Trump. That's not courage. He's just scared at this point. He got immunity from criminal prosecution and testified against the Trump organization and ultimately Alan Weisselberg, and convictions resulted. And now he's sued by the New York Attorney General, and I'm assuming they're going to go a little bit more lenient on him if they were able to get out some credible, important information against Donald Trump, which they did through Jeff McConney. I'm not shocked that they're not able to do it as easily or at all with Alan Weisselberg. Alan Weisselberg was a difficult person to get testimony out of when he was facing sentencing and going to Rikers Island, one of the worst penal locations, one of the worst jails in America. Even facing that at like pushing 80, he still frustrated the crap out of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. And even the judge, Judge Mershon, who was presiding over that case, the way he's presiding over the Stormy Daniels case, even he was frustrated, right? And they gave him 5.5 months. Okay, great. If he had testified more transparently, more easily, and dumped on Donald Trump, he probably wouldn't have went to jail at all, nor would he have been fined. But, he's been with the organization since Fred Trump, since Papa Trump was committing fraud, in federal programs, which is documented. Since he was building his homes, these apartments all over Queens. That's how long this CFO's been there. It's also remarkable to me, just recapping his testimony, that he's been the chief financial officer for the Trump organization since Papa Trump, right? And wet nurse, I guess, to Donald Trump about how to hide the fraud. And yet he testified that although, he's the chief financial officer, he's not a certified public accountant, and he has no idea what they're talking about when they talk about this concept that everybody knows in financial services and in lending and in borrowing, generally accepted accounting principles. It's called GAAP, GAAP. We talk about it in the law at this level all the time. So far, Don Jr. testified, and he's a senior executive. He has no idea what GAAP means. And Alan Weisselberg, who is the CFO of the company, but not the outside accountant or auditor, he says, I don't really understand GAAP either. How do you not understand generally accepted accounting principles, which your boss, Donald Trump, is signing that his statements of financial condition used to get bank loans to pump up his net worth, that they comply with generally accepted accounting principles? How do you allow your client, Donald Trump, as the CFO to sign such a thing if you don't even understand the principles of it? So either one, you're lying again about GAAP. I don't know. If I just say I don't know, maybe they'll stop asking me questions. Or you really don't know, and then it is criminally liable behavior and conduct for Donald Trump to put somebody in that chair for chief financial officer who doesn't understand the basic principles of accounting and lets the person do whatever they want and sign whatever they want without any oversight, right? This guy's a fiduciary to the company, right? To whoever invests in Trump organization. He owes a duty of care to those people. And he's letting Donald Trump sign things that are obviously false the moment they're signed. Incredible. Incredulous. And I'm sure Judge Engoron feels about the same way that I do in listening to the testimony. Big truth discount, credibility discount for Alan Weisselberg. A couple of things that he had to admit to because they were right before his very eyes in documents. But other than that, a lot of I don't remember, I don't recall. I'm not really a certified public accountant. I don't know what you're talking about. So bad that even Forbes magazine, as I said earlier, is jumping up and down saying he perjured himself. We have the notes. We have the interviews. We know when we met with him. We know he was pushing a $200 million valuation for a department that was, 300% bigger, inflated in size by the Trump organization. And so now we got her continuing, Letitia James and her people, to bring in all the money people, the bag people, the accounting, the lower level people are now being brought in right behind what she's done so far, which is the outside auditor accountant from Mazars, Don Bender, who dumped all over Alan Weisselberg and Jeff McConney and ultimately Donald Trump. And he'd been their accountant and auditor for 12 years, including personally. Then another auditor from Mazars. Then a Deloitte and Touche, a Deutsche Bank risk manager about what they relied on in order to give loans, including on the apartment in Mar-a-Lago. Then Alan Weisselberg. You see the momentum that the OAG is trying to build as they move into the second, third, fourth month of this trial. It's hard to believe we're only on the second week. And now with the new disclosure, circus coming back to town, boys and girls, get ready. The Donald Trump show, as Letitia James likes to call it, is coming back. Maybe on the day that my fellow podcaster and friend Michael Cohen is going to testify against him. He picks his moments. He stays as far away from Alan Weisselberg and his testimony as possible. And he stays as far away from Jeff McConney, right? He's conveniently absent from the courtroom. But Michael Cohen, the guy that he dismissed the lawsuit, so he didn't have to, against Michael Cohen, so he didn't have to give a deposition last week, that guy, tough guy. Now you're going to show up and do what? In a steel cage match between Michael Cohen and Donald Trump, you know who I'm going to take, right? In that political beatdown. So we're going to continue to follow the testimony in the courtroom, developments in the courtroom for the fraud case of the century brought by the Office of Attorney General from New York against Donald Trump and all the Trumpers and his executives and all of his entities. And we'll do it right here on the MeidasTouch Network on Legal AF. Yes, it's what you think. If you like my hot take, you're going to love what we do on Wednesdays and Saturdays on the MeidasTouch Network and the podcast Legal AF. We sit at that intersection of law, politics, and justice so that you don't have to. And we bring it to you in full-length podcast, about an hour, hour and 20 minutes. We do 5 or 6 stories just like this, except I've got a point counterpoint with 2 of my co-anchors. And then we do hot takes every day, every hour, updating you about developments, not just everything related to Donald Trump, everything related to justice, politics, and law. And so we cover the U.S. Supreme Court and developments there from oral argument all the way to decisions. Attacks on civil rights, voting rights, human rights, a woman's right to choose, human dignity, whatever it is in the United States, we will bring it to you right here on the MeidasTouch Network. Free subscribe on their YouTube channel. Help them get to 2 million. The bigger they are in this grassroots network, the more your voice is heard. Until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, it's Michael Popok reporting.
Hey Midas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.